Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. How many people are in a good mood today? How many of you lost your jobs because of the vaccine mandates? I need some context. So maybe half? Okay. How many of you just started coming out to rallies the last couple months because of all this? A lot. Welcome. Welcome. So I got to pick a direction for the speaker. So if you need to hear me, come on over here. My name is Palmer Davis. I operate as Waking Up Washington. This was a very spur-of-the-moment event, so I appreciate those of you who are willing to kind of jump in the car and come on down. I just do sign waves and rallies and kind of support good ideas. I live down in Southwest Washington where there's an incredible medical freedom community. And it just happened that happens to be our battle this year, right? So I didn't necessarily start out as a medical freedom activist, but it seems like we all are these days, right? I threw this out here the other day because certain people were locked out of that building the other day, and it made me really mad. But the truth is that we're all mad, right? Because a lot of you have been locked out of your jobs and your livelihoods. And part of what we're going to talk about today is how we're needing to do something. We keep using this word pivot. And so we're at this point now where we have to become activists, and we also have to become pioneers because we have to create something new, right? So we're going to hear from a few folks. This isn't going to be like a 3 or 4 hour kind of marathon. I wanted to give people the chance to come together and just meet like-minded people too. So we will just kind of hang out at the end and just get to know each other. But I don't usually talk about myself at these events because I feel like I'm the least interesting person in the room. But I think that it might be time, since a lot of you are new, to share a little bit because you might find it helpful. I'm a walk-away Democrat. Do any of you guys know that phrase? I identify that way because if it wasn't for that walk-away movement, and I'll explain what that is in a sec, I wouldn't have had the courage to wake up. And that's why Waking Up Washington is the thing, because I know exactly how hard it is to wake up. And some of you are probably going through that right now. I was a diehard, super liberal, new age, all the things. Completely different lifestyle, completely different person.
Could still be new age.
No, but I mean, there's more to that. I guess I should be careful how I word that. I'm not saying you can't, but I was a very experimental person. Let's put it that way. So I moved around a lot, but always just was just like, I just assumed Europe had it figured out. We should become socialist. We should just blaze forward into whatever that progressive Gene Roddenberry future is, right? So much so, my brother, a few years ago told me, Palmer, your unhappiness is because you're looking for one guy, and you need to just give in and become polyamorous, like me and my wife. Nice. And that's kind of the world that we live in. If we're living in Seattle or Portland or Austin or Brooklyn or, any of the major cities are all going in that direction. They're going into this future that people are really excited about. And part of what we're up against is the fact that we don't know necessarily what we're fighting for. That's something I'm going to ask you guys to think about. We know what we're fighting against, but what are we fighting for? Because the other side knows. The other side's excited. I'm telling you, I've been there. They're into it. And you wouldn't like it. I didn't like it. But I was at the point 2015, 2016, 2017 where I was really discouraged. I felt really confused, but I didn't know what to do about it. I thought I was just a failure. And I'm sharing this with you because I have a feeling in the months to come, as some of you find yourself having to become more vocal and defend more and more dramatic decisions and say no more and more often, like you did about your job, you're going to find yourself feeling like a radical. And it's scary. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way out of it. They've put us here. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. I spent years trying to avoid it, and here we are. They've decided, and I don't know who they is, but they've decided that if you care about making your own decisions, thinking for yourself, and defending your body, and actually even just really defending what it means to be human, that you're a radical. And I don't know how we got there. We can spend all day getting into conspiracy theories, but all I know is I was getting really discouraged. I considered the Democrat Party a party of free speech, and instead all my friends were celebrating that we should censor anybody who liked Trump, anybody who didn't like Hillary, yada yada. Nobody was into Bernie, even though as a Democrat I thought, well, he's better than Hillary. Again, another thing we could argue about all day. In some ways. As far as I know, Bernie hasn't killed anybody. But so But it was just like this, it was just everybody was becoming so locked into a mindset and just so unwilling to have any discussion or free speech or free, exchange of ideas, and so unwilling to have any diversity of viewpoints. And I'm like, I thought that's what Democrats were all about, was tolerance and diversity. And this was all happening, and then I started just going underground. I didn't watch the news anymore. I didn't really talk to people about politics because I just felt like I must be wrong. I must be just missing something. I'm not progressive enough. I'll just check out. And it was actually my mom who started following me around with her phone with these walk-away Democrat videos. I wouldn't watch them for a long time. I'm like, I don't want to watch any videos. And she's like, you have to watch these videos. And it was people like us who were feeling betrayed, confused, that the Democrat Party had moved so far to the left, to this Marxist globalist thing, that you couldn't be a Democrat anymore. We're at a point right now where we all need to question our party loyalty, and we all need to question how we label ourselves and others, because something's happening right now with the Republican legislators clapping for that. But something's happening right now with the vaccine where it's drawing people together in a way that I haven't seen in years, right? I think we can all agree that we're coming across party lines. Just even though we have friends and family members and coworkers telling us we're a bad person and an anti-vaxxer and ignorant, we're making new friends, right? You're standing here with people you wouldn't have stood around with before. That's exciting because that helps. We can only win if we come together. So we have to be questioning those party loyalties, those religious differences, and we have to really ask ourselves again, what are we fighting for? That's what will bring us together. So anyway, just to make a long story slightly shorter, by 2019, it was the worst year of my life. I was questioning everything. I was completely upside down, completely conflicted. All my Democrat coworkers and friends and family members were kind of stabbing me in the back, right and left. Nothing was going well. 2020 answered the question, where is this going? 2020 for me was a relief because I could see they're splitting us up and they're pushing us towards something, and this is getting worse and worse. Why? Well, so that they could tell one side of the country that there is a terrible pandemic going on and let the other side of the country go, I don't think so, right? And they've split us up and split us up and split us up. What's going on with law enforcement? What's going on with race? What's going on with the vaccine? What's going on with our kids? Every time they tell one side of the country one story on the news and the other side of the story the other side, and it's your job to figure out what the truth is, and it's hard. It's hard being out here on the other side of the line. And I think what I want to just encourage you to do is to go ahead and just be there. You can't rush into any new boxes. There are no boxes for you anymore. I wish that there was. It'd be easier. We'd probably get more done if there was, but right now there isn't. There aren't necessarily many Republicans who are standing up for your rights. A few that are happen to be here today. Thank God. Thank you. There's definitely very few Democrats that are. There's very few pastors who are standing up for our rights. There's very few teachers who are. But what that means is that it's up to us, and it also means that we can now start to create the country that we want. We don't have to sit around waiting for someone else to give us a future that we don't like. You have nothing better to do now than to become a visionary. And I know it's a big word, but please, think about it. That's what Americans used to be. We used to be entrepreneurs and soldiers and pioneers and pilgrims, and now you are again. You are again, because you can't go back into a box. Part of what I do is, because we're in the medical freedom space, we launched a project called Well Washington. We've been doing these sort of town hall workshops on how to stay healthy and outside the industrial healthcare system. And I mention that because it is an example of what we can do to move out of anger and out of I don't fit in a box into what's next. So what's next for my kids? Is it time for me to start a homeschooling co-op? Is it time for me to start a church in my living room? Is it time for me to start taking care of my own health? Is it time for me to finally start that business? It's exciting. But you give yourself some time to grieve and everything, but I just want to reassure you, I quit my job last November. I haven't gone back. A lot of us have been through this journey. It's really, really incredible. Once you get over the grief and the rage and all that good stuff, what's on the other side is so incredibly liberating. I don't do this because it pays any bills or makes people love me. I do it because it's incredible. And I think anybody, in fact, one of the gentlemen who will speak here today told me when this first happened, he's like, I'm not going back. Because there's just something so amazing about being given no alternative but to stand up for what you believe in.
Amen.
All right.
So I think actually I'll change the lineup a little bit since I segued so beautifully to that gentleman. It's a friend of mine connected me with somebody when we were all protesting with the healthcare workers and the state workers, August, September. How do we stand up for their rights? How do we help them fight for their right to avoid the vaccine? I got to meet a lot of really cool people, and one of them is here today. He was working for the Department of Corrections, and he is now a badass medical freedom activist. I'd love for you to welcome Sean.
Thank you so much, Palmer. I'm going to set some of my gear down because it is a little distracting. That's Medical Freedom Lewis County. I believe it was founded on August 10th, right after the mandate. That good? Right after the mandate came into effect, me and 6 coworkers got together from the Department of Corrections, Community Corrections Division in Lewis County. And we got together, and mostly out of fear and confusion and not really having a course to navigate and where to go next and what that was going to look like. And we were able to get everyone together. I believe 6 out of the 16 officers in our office are no longer with the department. So that is, a third of us that were dismissed from our employment. And with the foundation of Medical Freedom Lewis County, some of you may be familiar with it. I know that Mr. Jim Walsh has been there before. It was really just a fellowship organization to build community capacity and to build buy-in and to be a tangible essence and force in the community. And what I want to talk to you about today is what that looks like, not from the reactionary perspective of reacting to a mandate, but how are we going to take this vision and this proactive reality now that we have in front of us and organize and create advocacy around something that is going to be a long-term effort. And that's what I want to compel you all to do today, is we need to have a transcendental quality to what we're doing, because things done in the traditional manner and things done as they have been done before, protesting is great, don't get me wrong. We need to be here for each other. We need to be a living, breathing, foot soldiers of God, proximity to each other, people in our community. We need to be able to attach names and faces to the impact that this is having on everyone. I know that's why we're all here, and I'm grateful for you all coming. But I've said it from the start, and I said it the first time I came and grabbed a microphone here, I believe it was August 12th, something around there, that I'm not willing to let my kids inherit a world where medical experimentation is thrust upon them against their will, nor am I willing to let them see their father subject to such things. So when I start thinking about this long-term trajectory, I'll give you just a few examples of really, I think, what's at stake and trying to give you an idea. I knew from the start that I was going to be giving up my employment. I knew that I would not be, employed lest this mandate be rescinded from the governor. So I started looking for employment in different sectors, just slowly for sure and surely. I got turned down by a local 911 dispatch department because I was deemed to be too costly to train and then have to release if there was a vaccine mandate that would come to fruition in that department. I was in the final process of being hired by a private security firm in Auburn to do contract work with the U.S. Marshals, and was told that I need to be vaccinated by December 8th. So what I'm learning now is that every turn I take and that every corner I go around, especially in the capacity of law enforcement and security, it doesn't sound real good that this thing is going to be able to be escapable for me. So I've started talking to Palmer and talking to others and started thinking about the long-term trajectory on what this is going to be and what this is going to have. And one of the things that I want to put on your heart and compel you to today is we need to become advocates, okay? There's so many people that are down and out and brokenhearted. I've had the unique privilege of working in public education. I was a dean of students and a behavior intervention specialist in the Ocean Beach School District. I was a CPS investigator for the state here in Tumwater, and I've been in corrections. And what I've seen is that every single one of these systems does very little to serve every individual need, and they're all crushed and broken systems of despair with very little good coming out of them. And people don't know how to navigate these systems. They're too big. When CPS shows up at your door, or when a judge signs your judgment and sentence for a felony conviction and you're now under the jurisdiction of the Department of Corrections, people begin to see and process these big systems, and they either conform or have some other reaction that really worries me. And so what I'm trying to kind of impress you to do, and what I'm trying to think about now, is how do we go within these systems that have destroyed my job and my livelihood, that I've seen destroy the lives of kids, that I've seen impacted kids in the school systems who haven't got their IEP or been served appropriately in the schools. And I've seen the bleeding gashes throughout all of these systems. I've seen how they intersect. I've seen how kids that are impacted by the child welfare system are impacted by the school system and education, and who are then impacted by the correction system. And where I'm going with this is we have to get into these systems and start sticking up and standing for our rights. They aren't too big, okay? We have to get people into these systems who speak the language, okay? Who can go in and use the vernacular. And I know there's professionals from all over the state in many different sectors. We have to be able to, stand by, the student that's not being served in the public school system, or, the kid across the street who doesn't have a guardian ad litem or a court-appointed special advocate. Go and volunteer for these places within your local jurisdictions, because there's got to be some compelling move from within the systems, not just outside of the systems. We are still right now operating outside of the system. I work for a state that has effectively divided those of religious, moral, and ethical standard by getting us to ask for or request a religious exemption. They've been effectively able to divide and point out and find whoever might have a religious underpinning or ethical or moral responsibility. And they've been able to identify and terminate every single one of those people. That should freak us out. That should freak us out, because not only do they effectively never plan on accommodating anybody with these exemptions, they also wanted to know and figure out how they could effectively dismantle the last underpinnings of ethics and morality. And I'm not saying there's not, people that, aren't necessarily part of a religion. There's plenty of moral people who don't have religious underpinnings. But man, talk about the governor building up and propagating a workforce that will do his will.
Hear, hear.
That by sticking up for yourself, and one of the things too that scared me in seeing this whole process unfold is from August 9th till October 18th, I worked in a segregated workforce. I mean, literally, the clean and the unclean. The ones with rights and the ones with no rights. The political and career jockeying of who was going to get the supervisor position now that the supervisor was going to get terminated. The backstabbing and cunning of people who were seeing this as being advantageous so long as they got the shot. They're not willing to eat in the same break room as you anymore, storing on a different shelf of the refrigerator. I mean, just weird things that we have the capacity of human beings to still do. I know 80 years ago we can pinpoint a lot of these things that happened in, World War II in Europe, Japan, other places. And we don't think that they could happen to us, but it's in front of our eyes right now. It is. And there's so many ways to participate and engage in your community. And I don't know if I have all the answers, but I just want to compel you to just think about one or two things that you can do that you're good at, that you can go in and take a risk. All right? Nobody said when you stepped into this thing, this advocacy thing, and this activist thing, nobody said it was going to be comfortable. Okay? Holy Spirit is called the Comforter because he knew you would be uncomfortable when you stepped into this thing. Okay? One of the best lines I've ever heard from a sermon. So know that there is suffering in this. Not martyrdom. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is long suffering. There is going to be suffering. There is going to be a period of time where you're going to have to do without, or maybe not get on a plane to Hawaii, or do certain things that are not going to be protected by the sacrifices that you're going to have to make. So just be willing to give up those comforts for a while, all right? Because as Palmer said, that discomfort and that urging and that pressing is going to refine you into the fire of a better, stronger person. Use it as the refining fire, okay? And I'm sorry to say, it's just begun, okay? We are only on the brink of what we're about to see, and I am not an apocalyptic doom and gloom type of person. That is not my mentality. I'm generally pretty positive. But I can see where we're going with this. And one of the things that I told Palmer, she sent me a text message with a video attached to it. One of the things where I was just, I don't know who saw it, and I know that Jim's going to speak more about it, but when they locked him out of the chambers, out of this building, I go, oh boy. This is
my building. Sean, it's your building.
Well, yeah, there we go. When they locked a man who was elected and placed by the people of this state out of his ability and out of his office to do the job, it became very clear that they don't respect the voting process, that they don't respect any processes which might even give the illusion that we're doing things democratically. I mean, they're openly dismantling these things in front of our eyes. And I heard a lot of people say it throughout this time. It just starts with the mask, right? 2 weeks, stay at home, right? And it's the slow concession, the slow drip, bleeding away to the point now where our elected officials are being locked out of their offices and locked out of both chambers. And Mr. Walsh, I know we'll talk about it more, was on national news all over the place. I thought it would get to that point. But that's happening in our state. That's happening right here. And if I had a nickel for every time someone said they're going to move, oh, I'm going to Kansas, or I'm going to go to Texas, or, Montana's looking pretty good right now, we're looking to buy some land. If your heart compels you to do that, then that's fine. I support you. But whatever happened to standing and fighting right here? If you don't stand and fight right here, then Texas or Montana or Kansas or Nebraska, you are entering that state with a defeatist mentality. In 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, will you be able to stand up then? Right? So stand here. Do this here. Okay? Medical Freedom Lewis County is on Facebook. We have been pretty dormant for the last few weeks, to my own admission of being deflated and defeated by all of this, having to reel back a minute and kind of see what is it that we do now? How do we compel people to go into every sector and every public service domain and contribute what they have? Hold every teacher accountable who discriminates against your child based on, how nicely they wear their mask and whether it's on straight on their face. If people aren't being called out on this, or there's not discussion and dialogue happening, then we don't have anything, okay? We've already lost and conceded that. And that is my biggest worry, is that these systems seem so big, seem so large, and so abundant with their resources that oftentimes us individuals aren't willing to take them on, okay? But collectively we can, and I just want to put that on your heart today and compel you to action, a call to action, okay? Coming to the state grounds is great. This is how we feed each other. This is how we fuel each other. This is how we activate each other, so to speak. But it can't end here. It has to be a living, breathing reality that trickles into everything you're doing. Into the grocery store, okay? Into the line at school when you're waiting to pick your kid up, okay? And in every decision that you make, okay? This is a call for all of you to become foot soldiers of God, okay? And by that, I mean foot soldiers of individual rights and liberty, which were granted to us by our Creator. Again, I was here on August 12th
telling people that there is such thing as a religious exemption, there is such thing as a medical exemption, and we all make it through this together so long as we applied for our exemptions. And boy, was I wrong. So now I'm here on October 22nd. We're having a completely different conversation in a molding, changing environment. So just be prepared for that.
You were not wrong. Sean was not wrong. Let's hear it for Sean, by the way. You have to do whatever's next. If you think about, I keep bringing up World War II. They never knew when they were going to win. You never know what the battle is that's going to turn the tide. And you never know what step is going to work, is going to stick, is going to create momentum. You never know what you're going to say that's going to get through to somebody else. All you can do is whatever's next. And I really want to build on what Sean said in terms of taking action. It's really, really easy to get overwhelmed. And something I tell people a lot, might seem counterintuitive, but I'm constantly begging people, put down your phone, stop watching the videos. We know things are going to hell in a handbasket. Do you really need to know exactly which way Bill Gates plans on taking us there? Is it really going to make a difference? The question that you have to ask yourself every day is, what's one thing I could do today? And if you do that, if we each did that, we'd have won last year. I believe that so wholeheartedly. I say it all the time and nobody ever believes me, but I challenge you. Just every single day, one thing. If you're a Christian, pray about it. Ask God, what do you want me to do today? It doesn't have to be big. It could be a letter to the editor. It could be a Facebook post, although don't rely on that too much. It could be talking to the neighbor you've been putting off. It could be looking up how to contact your legislator. It could be looking up how to run for office yourself next year. It could be looking up who's on your school board. Could be finally starting that weekly meetup in your living room with your friends so you can stop complaining and start coming up with plans together. There's something each and every one of us could be doing. Oh, a favorite? Going to the store unmasked. I was surprised when I told people the other day, I mentioned with a little bit of embarrassment that I put on a mask again. It was the 4th time I put on a mask since this whole thing started. And people were like, 4th? No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. This was non-negotiable. Nobody's telling me what to put in my face. It seems self-evident to me. Nobody's telling me what to put in my body. Nobody, if I don't have kids, but they sure as heck wouldn't be telling them what to think either if I had children. But you have to decide for yourself. You know, you have to decide, I'm not going to let people push me around anymore. And I know it's hard, but like, it's this little stuff. I'm worried some of y'all are waiting till this gets to World War III and you can pull out the you-know-whats. Let's not go that far. Let's start by going into Home Depot unmasked. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So, another gentleman I wanted you all to hear from I'll make this segue. Hopefully I can make this thoughtfully. Again, coming back to the idea that we have been divided. One of the ways we have been divided, or they would like to divide us, is with demographics. And I hope you don't mind my just mentioning this openly. But it bothers me a lot when having been on the Democrat side where theoretically everyone's open and tolerant, and they're not so much, but it's still pretty easy for folks on this side to watch, some of the rioting and things that were happening and start to come to some pretty racist conclusions. That's what they wanted. We must never, ever, ever do that, right? We must bear witness. We must be like Jesus. We must love each other. We must be colorblind. Right? And we must always look for what we have in common. Now, I shouldn't have to say this. I'm embarrassed that I even am. But the fact of the matter is there are very few people on our side. There are, right? And he's amazing. And he's wonderful. And I hate that I said it, but I did. And I'm sorry. But it's a fact. So we have someone here who was fighting from the union side. He's here in the Olympia area. He's starting up a media company. He's welcome to share. His name is Damon Brown. Please welcome him.
Hi, my name is Damon. I'm a Democrat. I haven't changed. Okay. Let me start out with an anecdote. My mother used to say, sometimes the hard-headed need to feel it to believe it. Yep. Boy, howdy. Monday came and left. After 16 years of state employment, 14 years working in law enforcement, it's all over. This week has been spent gaining perspective. Here's one for you. You might not like it, but it's true. Most of you have been paying into a federal social security network. Yes? Take a breath with me. There's something for you should you suddenly qualify for unemployment or some other type of social security network. Now, if you're like me, you're not interested at any time suddenly qualifying for social assistance from no one anytime.
Right.
This message, there are 4 asks. The first ask is, I can't remember the first ask. No, I can remember the first ask.
You got it, buddy.
Is to hear me. Number 1. If you don't want to go down that path, please listen intently. 2, think like me. That will be apparent in a little bit why I'm asking you to think like me. I need to have you ask yourself, what are you fighting for? Be very, very clear about that. And lastly, has to do with failure. I will be the first to admit publicly when I've taken a loss. Monday, that was a loss. I want to pull this thought grenade, pull the spoon, and throw it into the crowd and have it blow up 2 hours later. And this is the difficult part. Sorry, I'm trying not to get all... Absolutely. Failure is contingent based upon what you do next. Let that blow up in your head 2.5 hours from now. Failure is only contingent based on what you do next. I know what it's obvious, that we don't need any more meddling, interference from those like the governor, the Washington State Supreme Court, the Washington State Senate and House of Representatives, and those Inslee supporters. Let me be clear about who I'm talking about. Those individuals who accept it's okay for anyone to start the process of losing everything. Again, be very clear about what you're fighting for. That question about thinking like me, what I've taken upon myself, and I'm asking you to do it as well, is to take up an abundance mindset. Throw off that depression, that guilt, that shame. Throw it off. Put on your mindset and keep it abundant. What I found in doing so is I learned to breathe. I learned to put things into perspective, diagnose them clearly. I started stretching. I encourage you to stretch as well. Think about it. If it's that heavy, when's the last time you got in touch with your body? Lose the stress. You can feel it. It's in your back, it's in your hips, it's in your shoulders, right here, right? Stretch, let it go. We're not going to be mad because the sun is hot, right? Take it the way that it is. If you can remember to be of service to someone, that's that abundance mindset. Remember, if you got the bandwidth, the time is now. Don't wait. Help somebody out if you can. For those who are thinking about making an awful decision, taking yourself out, It's serious. Don't call someone. I have a 10-digit number on me. We can do it in confidence, in private. Come seek me out. I'll give you the number. There's even an option for veterans. 10-digit number. Press 1 for veterans. I'm going to wrap it up here. Don't let them catch us not networking, harvesting our talents. When the opportunity comes, it'll be too late for you to prepare. Network. Get prepared. Keep your abundant mindset. We need to continue to boldly go. Okay? You heard the phrase, no man, no woman has gone before. Now that your mind is straight, perhaps your clarity about what you're fighting for is in tune, or at least you're still thinking about it. That's good. I want to pray this upon your life, that you get through these cycles of grief and return to your new normal, paid double and fully restored. We don't need the left hand operating over our lives. We need the right hand. Can I get an amen? Amen. Over our future. Let us do that now. My name is Damon Brown, middlecompass.com. I want to get to know you. I want to know your story. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Damon. Got heavy there. So we do need to acknowledge we are going through a transition. There's emotion involved. We need to support each other. We need to be getting together in person. Online doesn't count, right? The more of this you can do, the better. Don't be distracted by whether or not it's working, because you're never going to know. Just show up. Don't get into arguments over what you need to be doing. Just do what you feel called to do. Everybody loves to argue online. Don't. Right? Get outside. Spend time with your kids. If you're spiritual, get into church. Whatever you need to do. Take care of yourself and your heart and your soul. And then start asking yourself, what was I liberated for? Because that's really the question. You have been liberated. So we have our two wonderful legislators to hear from. So our first... I wish we had so many legislators that we couldn't even we're just arguing over which ones we were going to hear from, right? Yeah. But the ones that are, we have to just be grateful for all the more. And we just have to just give all our support, whether we're in their district or not. Neither of these gentlemen are men that I can vote for, but boy, oh boy, I sure support them with everything I've got. So if we could please welcome Joel McIntyre.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I think I might be a little bit of a new face, so I think introductions are in order. My name is Joel McIntyre. I hail from Southwest Washington, known politically as the 19th District. So if you just go south and west until you hit the ocean, that corner of the state, that's us. And I have the pleasure of serving as a seatmate to Representative Jim Walsh. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing that I get to experience. A little bit about my backstory. I was raised in Southwest Washington. Got my bachelor's degree at Central Washington University. I have my master's in mathematics education. Okay, not loud enough. Have my master's in mathematics education. I've been in the Marine Corps for 10 years. I've worked as an educator in the public school and the university level on a couple occasions. I have a family. I want my kids to have a good place to be raised the way I was raised. And then I got sucked into this political business, and now here I am. But I want to tell you a little bit about the area that I come from. There has never been a Republican senator and 2 representatives in the 19th District, ever. Today there is. Of all the smart people that know about politics and political science, never would have predicted that the 19th District in this day and age would have 3 Republicans in that delegation, a Republican senator and 2 Republican representatives. I think it's been since before the 70s that a Republican was even in the seat, and before World War II that someone was in Jim's seat. So you see how sparse it's been. There's these one-offs where a Republican would go in and then last 2 years and then get out of it, but something has changed. I think I've tapped a little bit into what's changed, and it hasn't just been me, it's been the people have been receptive and ready for a new message, for a new direction. But I find myself being a different kind of conservative. I've been described as being mean, of being rude, of being arrogant and bombastic, and being in people's faces. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I am a different kind of conservative. I have seen conservatives, take my parents for example, never spoke politics in the home, were the perfect conservative folks. Lived their lives, paid their taxes, did their jobs, and said the adage to themselves, as long as you don't tell me how to live my life, I won't bother you. You live your life the way you like, and I'll live my life the way I like to live. But that's not the world we live in. The world is crawling with people that we colloquially now know as Karens. There are people asking for your manager. There are people that come around and tell you how to live your life. You should have a ramp here, not steps. How is so-and-so supposed to get up here? Oh man, your shelves are too narrow. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to get a lawyer and sue you. People that just want to cause trouble. They love drama, they love trouble, and they love poking you in the chest and saying, I bet I can make you change. I bet I can run your life. If they can't do it through shaming, they'll go to their legislators and say, I want a bill passed. Blah, 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 blah. And then before you know it, boom. There's the warrant for your arrest on your door or whatever, and they finally get the last laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, how did this happen? How are we in the situation that we're in now? It's because conservatives have been conservative. Like my parents, they didn't get in other people's faces and tell them how to live their lives. They weren't bombastic. They were good, common sense, decent people. And though I love to claim those qualities myself, that I'm good and decent and common sense and all that stuff, I am also vicious with my ideological opponents. I am unrelenting. It's what I learned in the Marine Corps. You do not give your opponent the chance to come back. You do not. And people say, well, that's a little harsh, don't you think? Yes, it is harsh. It is harsh and absolutely necessary. And absolutely necessary. And so how did we campaign with Jim Walsh, Jeff Wilson, and Joel McIntyre? We were unified. That's number one. We didn't, though in a room amongst ourselves there may be points of difference and strategy that which we disagree, we are absolutely unified in our dedication to making our district red, making it a better place to be, and having a common sense message going forward. And we will not let that any differences break us up on that. We will not be divided. We have a unified message. And another thing is, all 3 of us are vicious. That's another one. We are absolutely unrelenting. And now you say, well, Joel McIntyre, how'd you do it? How did you do this? I don't find myself being particularly smart or having a lot of talents, but the talents that I do have, the things I can do, I put to work. I have this, I don't know, this bug, this thing that gets in, and then I have to finish jobs, and I have to see out the task until it's done. And so I would start knocking doors with my pamphlets, asking people to vote for me. And I would go and I would just say, all right, one more street, one more house. And then when I was tired and I was sweaty and I was alone, there was no one out there knocking with me, I'd say just one more door. And I would knock on that door, and it would be someone who was so grateful to see that there was somebody who had the guts to come on their front doorstep and just ask them for a vote. And if you think that they wanted to ping me about questions about my tax policy or what I think about educational policy, they don't want to hear that. They were just glad to see that someone came up to their front door. Never happened before. No one has run for representative and come to my front door and asked me for a vote. Sir, you got it. And that's all it took. And I said, well, this is easier than I thought. They don't even want to hear about my beliefs or policies or nothing. They just want to see that I'm not a psychopath and that vote, I'll vote for you. And so I was like, all right, one vote in the bag. Go to the next door. I knock on the door, and they said, well, this is a family with 4 voters. You've got all 4 of our votes. All right. And could you tell your friends? Yeah, we'll each tell a friend to vote for you. Thank you. And it compounded like interest in a nice bank account. And it just got bigger and bigger. And you know what's the best part? I didn't just give him my pamphlets. I gave him Jim's and Jeff Wilson's too. So it was a 3-for-1 deal. And guess what? When Jim was out doing rallies, guess whose signs and pamphlets he had? He had mine. And when Jeff Wilson was driving around doing parades with his tank, he's got a tank. And he's in a tank. He's throwing out Jim Walsh and Joel McIntyre signs and pamphlets. We genuinely cared about each other's success. And it made for a powerful movement forward. And the reason I'm saying this is because we, on our side, and I think this is true on the other side, we have a way of being our own worst critics. And we look at the other members of our party or people that we don't agree with, and we say, I hate that person. They're in our party, but I hate that their lack of motivation. I hate that they're not doing enough. I hate there's something about it. And we let that get to us. We have to understand a biblical principle that the body is made up of many parts. And the hand can't say to the foot, I don't have any need of you. The eye can't say to the ear, I have no need of you. The ear is no good without the rest of the body. Neither is a foot good without the rest of the body. Only when we are unified and together are we worth something. And we can do something. And we are all different. And so if you say, Joel McIntyre, your story's great, but I can't knock doors. Okay, can you phone bank? You can get apps and press the dial button and it calls a random number in your district. And all you have to say is, hello, I'm supporting such and such candidate. I'd love to let you know about their candidacy. Please vote for them. Not good at that either. Can you raise money? Can you man a stand at a fair? Can you sit in a chair at a fair? Can you do that? And with constitutions and give them out to people as they pass by. Can you do that? We can all do something. We can all help in this great work. And for those many friends of mine that have decided to pick up and leave and move to greener pastures in other states, I am sorry to see them leave. Idaho's that way. If you want to go, I'm not physically going to stop you. But I'll have you know the liberals will be there in 10 years. They will follow you. Wherever you find green pastures, the Karens, the foaming at the mouth liberals will be there in a decade to ruin your communities.
Idaho, case in point, they're already there.
Texas has been for the last generation our safe place. Do you know before Texas, California was our safe zone? Do you know California was the Republican hub? That was the safe place? You wouldn't believe it. But before Texas was red, it actually voted for Kennedy. It was hard blue. And then our side worked for it to get it red. And now the lazy Republicans in Texas are like, we've got so many delegates, we've got so many votes. You wait and see. A few years of them letting up, just like I said about the Marine Corps, they let their opponents up, and they will be lost. But I have a different vision for Washington State than my friends who have left. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to take my rudeness, my bombasticity, and I'm going to continue to knock doors in my own district. And if it looks good in our district, I'm going to go walk over into the neighboring district and I'm going to go knock doors there. And I'm going to keep knocking on blue districts until we run red all over the place. And we encroach on the evil that is Seattle downtown. And we draw a red ring around that sucker and we tighten and tighten and tighten it. That's the only way. Hard work and dedication. And like I said, you all have something to offer. So don't move. Join us in this quest to see a better Washington. We are not lost. Amen. If people hang their head and say, oh, it'll never change. Well, it never will with that attitude. That's right. It will change. It will. And these dark times that we're in is a result of 20 years of us being silent and being good conservatives. Yep. Be a different kind of conservative now. Be out there, be bombastic. Push the boundaries of that. Like the bad guy in that movie, I'm the bully now. We have the narrative. We've got the microphone. We're going to run the narrative from here on out. Enough of us being the butts of jokes around the water cooler. Oh, those Trump voters. Oh, those Bible readers. Oh, they're a bunch of Neanderthals and stuff. And conservatives are in the workplace, they don't want to speak up. They shake their head and they say, oh, that's so sad to hear. But not anymore. Now I can stand up. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about me? Am I the Bible-wielding, gun-toting Trump voter you think's a Neanderthal? What's the square root of 100, genius? You tell me. What's the capital of New York? Yeah, you don't know. You're dumb. And it's okay. It's okay to be a little abrasive at certain times. Other times, when the phones come out and you know you're streaming, then you gotta tone it down just a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, I've gone on too long, but you haven't seen the last of me. I'll be back because Jim will be back, and we're a team on this. So thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Joel. I thought it was funny that you brought up being mean. That was one of the first things that started to get to me as a Democrat working in a super liberal company and the super liberal Seattle area and super liberal Portland and my super liberal brother and sister-in-law. And everybody's so kind to each other all the time about everything, right? Just super sweet about just put on the mask, we're going to keep each other safe. Super sweet about telling you what to think and do and what to teach your kids, how to run your business. Super sweet about deciding where your money goes. They're just doing it for you. And it's this bizarre war. The war that we're fighting isn't one of violence or with bullets. All they have to do is say that you're mean, right? You're racist. You're not compassionate. You're not being Christ-like. You won't put a mask on. Keep your fellow churchgoers safe. That's all they have to do. Are we really going to let them win just by calling us mean? Please tell me no.
No.
You have to. Thank you. You have to accept that.
Kidding me?
What'd you say?
Wear it like a badge of honor.
That's really.
Horrible.
I had a fellow protester the other day. She asked me to host an event. She goes, "You're just so sweet." She's like, "I can't be that way." And I wanted to tell her, it's made my life a living hell, because it is really hard to stand up for what you believe in when you're still trying to be sweet. But, you got to find your way through it. And I always tell people it's better to, make your point crying than not try to make it at all. So even if you're worried you might lose your temper or lose your shit, go ahead, speak up. Speak up, and you'll be glad that you did. Even if there's a little period of embarrassment and shaking and stuff afterwards, and I can tell you that happens, you're always glad that you did. And each time it gets easier. And then when it really is going to matter, you'll be ready, and you'll realize that this isn't hate, this isn't intolerance, this is love. You saw what Biden's announced, what he wants to do to the kids of this country.
It's nauseating.
Is it mean if it saves the lives of millions of children to say we disagree? I hope not. I hope not. But even if it is, let's be mean. Because the time is now, and this is the war that we're fighting. So if they call it mean, then fine. We just have to be mean. Now, I personally haven't seen either of these gentlemen be mean, but maybe they are now and then. All I know is that they stick up for our rights. They've been trying to get a ban on vaccine passports passed. They've been trying to use these buildings. They show up with We the People at every given opportunity, which is why, like I said, even though I can't vote for him, I support him. Please welcome Jim Walsh.
Thanks, Palmer. All right, how you doing? Thanks for coming out on a Friday where you could be doing so many other things. But what we are doing here together is we are helping the resistance grow in this state. We are helping people find their voices in this state. And we are helping Washingtonians keep their freedom. So to get the first question out of the way, I am still locked out of my office here at the Capitol. Thank you, Speaker Jenkins. And about 25, 26 other legislators are locked out because they have refused to provide papers about their shot status. And we are still legislators. We are still able to attend Zoom meetings, and we can do these things. So we're doing our jobs, but we're not able to do them as well as we would. Yeah, well, it is segregation. That's true. It is segregation. It is division. And it's what the establishment left in this state values. Division, segregation, turning groups of people against each other. It is their guiding philosophy. They divide people by race. They divide people by gender. They divide people by where they live. They divide people by how much money they have. They divide. They divide because they think they can conquer if they divide. Are you going to let them do that? No. We are Washingtonians and we are Americans. We have more in common and we share more together than we are different or are apart. Don't let the divisiveness of the current governor and the segregation of the current speaker over there make you believe that you are your neighbor's enemy. You are not. We are friends. We are brothers and sisters. We are free people together. Now, Palmer made a good point at the start today. We have to think more. We have to speak more about what we're for, not just what we're against. We know what we're against. We're against tyranny. We're against one individual trying to tell 7 million how to live. We are against an elected manager saying, I am the only person who can save lives in the state of Washington. When you get to a situation like that, where an individual can say that on a TV interview and not get laughed out of the room, we have a problem in our government. And we can fix it, and we will fix it. How? By saying what we're for. And what we're for is every person's self-ownership, self-actualization, and individual rights. It says it right there in the Washington State Constitution. It is by recognizing yourself, your self-ownership, and acting as a free person that you create freedom for everyone.
Thank you.
You know, it is the way that we create real communities, not fake communities. Real communities are where free people, by choice, join together for common interests, in common pursuits, to make their local neighborhood a nicer place to live. But the key to this success is the individual's sanctity, the individual's self-ownership. And that's not a selfish thing. It's not a narcissistic thing, but it is the essential building block for real community and a real republic. It is the building block that makes free people live better lives, work better jobs, happier, more well-adjusted in raising their families. It has to start with the individual and emanate out through the family, through the neighborhood, through the town, the community, to the state and the nation. And this is what the founders of this state and this country believed in. And we've got to get back to that. We've got to get back to that. The Washington State Constitution, of course, doesn't give you any rights. You have your rights because you are a human being. But the Washington State Constitution, like the federal Constitution, does describe in detail for the slow-witted and the lawyers what your rights are. And I love the Washington State Constitution because we're in the part of the Washington State Constitution that talks about religious freedom, similar to the First Amendment in the federal Constitution, it goes a little farther. And it says really what is protected, what is your right that the government can infringe, is your freedom of conscience. And I think that's an important distinction, especially right now. You have freedom of conscience. You have the ability to believe what you believe and think what you think without the interference of a busybody governor who's still auditioning for a job in D.C. that he hasn't ever gotten and probably isn't ever going to get. The Washington State Constitution also is better on your right to privacy. As you may know, in our federal Constitution, there is no explicit right to privacy described. It's implied, the courts have said, from other things that the federal Constitution says. But in the Washington State Constitution, you have an explicit right to privacy. What that means is the government cannot interfere with your personal affairs, that's the language the Constitution uses, without the proper order of law. Not mandate, not edict, not proclamation, not emergency rule. In order to interfere with your privacy, there must be the proper order of law. And we've been lacking the proper order of law in this state for 600 days. You know, these issues are so much bigger than COVID. These issues are so much bigger than shots or no shots. These are issues that are essential to who we are as Washingtonians. This state has always been good on civil liberties. The history of this state is very good on protecting the individual's rights of conscience and privacy. It's been good on your right to own property. It's been great on your right to keep and bear arms. Believe it or not, this state's very strong on those rights. It's only been in the last few years, and especially the last 600 days, that we've kind of forgotten all that. We've lost our way. But what we need to do, banding together and speaking a good message to our families and our neighbors, even if you're having trouble with them because they're for the shot, stay happy, keep engaged with them, keep talking to them, and remind them how blessed we are to live in this state which so values civil liberties and individual rights. It's a wonderful history. It's a great tradition, and we have to reclaim it because the current governor has no understanding of this state's great traditions. He doesn't. He's a grasping, want-to-be autocrat. And I mean, that's just the truth. I don't like couching things in those terms. But some of us have enabled this. Some of us have allowed this by being a little too complacent, by being a little too happy. Times have been good in this state. The economy has done well for 20 plus years, really 40 plus years. But we're beginning to see the hard edge of bad politics and bad government. You know, the current governor has terminated almost 2,000 state workers. And wrongfully, in my opinion. All the while claiming another Super Bowl victory and using kind of cherry-picked numbers to say that his edicts and his mandates have been successful. And you can cherry pick numbers and claim just about anything. Remember Mark Twain's great line, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. But what we know is his position is not maintainable. His position in letting those 2,000 state workers go is going to cause havoc in our state agencies in the coming days and weeks. He cherry picks the numbers and says, well, 90% have agreed. Only a few really were difficult. Well, one of the points that I'm concerned about is those few who were difficult and didn't obey are disproportionately taken from agencies and sub-agencies and departments that are essential to delivering services to the people of this state. And I think what we're going to find as it starts to snow a little more in the mountains is that some WASDOT, that is Department of Transportation workers, who were terminated by this governor, aren't going to be there to clear the roads. And that will be a problem. I think it's no news that a great number of those that the governor terminated worked for the ferry system, and if you live out on one of the islands, your ability to get to the mainland has been cut way down, like in half or worse. We do know that the governor's terminations landed disproportionately on the Washington State Patrol, and that our public safety and our well-being will be affected negatively by those troopers who have signed off or just been terminated. So it's going to be a tough few weeks and months ahead, and it will show the decadence and the arrogance of this governor's policies. But we are strong, we are free, and we will survive the collateral damage, the human damage that this governor has done. We will survive the petty insults and inconveniences that the speaker puts on us by locking us out of our offices. We will survive this arrogance, this decadence, and this bad government. Why? Because we are free, we are strong, and we believe in the constitutional values of the individual, the family, and the local community. Our government is set up to operate best at the most local level, and I will continue to fight for that government that recognizes your freedom of conscience, that recognizes your right to privacy, that says there will be no special privileges given to one group that are not given to all. We will defend these constitutional values. They are the bedrock of our society and our community, and they are the highest law in the land. They crush these petty edicts. They crush these little emergency rules. They crush these interim policies. We have right on our side. We have the Constitution on our side. We have law on our side. And we have the people on our side. God bless you all for being here.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so some thoughts to wrap up. I always like to leave you guys with some action items. You can follow what we're up to, Waking Up Washington, on Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, or the website, washington.com. I'm mostly in Southwest Washington, so I tend to focus on projects there, but I'm always looking for collaborators around the state. So if you have an idea, just reach out. We are right now, I know it feels like the layoffs are what you're recovering from, but you probably are all aware that what we're facing is a few months of even increased turmoil, right? We have a lot of people who've injected something experimental in their body. We're seeing a lot of illness. We're seeing a lot of, we're going to continue to see economic instability because we have lost so many people from our workforce. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I'm just asking you to just kind of get grounded, because things are going to get weirder and weirder and weirder. And the most important thing is that you just stay active and you don't give in. It's not an option. You've made it this far, right? So you have to take care of yourself and your family. I'm just going to keep repeating that, because you're a soldier and we need you in the Army, and we need you to be strong and ready to go. And that doesn't matter if that's out protesting or just going to the store without losing your temper. It doesn't matter what it is. We just need you, okay? So stay with us and take care of yourself. And I guess all I can ask you to do is to think about risk in a new way. Because what we're looking at is a future where we're free now. You might not have noticed it, but you actually just became free when you lost your jobs. You don't have to be nice to your boss anymore or do all that stupid busy work that they kept asking you to do. You're free. And when you get used to it, you're going to love it, but it involves risk, right? Like I said, you're going to start a new business. You're going to homeschool your kids. You're going to decide to start learning how to can or garden or whatever it is, and it is going to involve risk. And you got to get into a mindset of finding joy in that, because that's actually what freedom felt like for most Americans for 200 years. Like Jim said, we became complacent, we became comfortable. So what's happening now is we all get to start living an adventure, and just like Bilbo Baggins, we walk out of our little hobbit hole going, oh shit, what's ahead of me? A whole book. In fact, you get 3 books and you get a bunch of movies. It's going to be incredible. It's not going to be as bad as you think, but you just got to change your mindset and your way of thinking about things. One of my favorite stories, and I'll end with this, was a gentleman I was talking to recently who got into a fight at the airport with TSA guys who wanted to frisk him. They thought he had something on his body. He was setting off the metal detectors, and he didn't. And he's not only anti-mask, he's anti-laying a finger on him. So you're at the airport and you're telling TSA guys, no, you don't get to frisk me. I've never heard of somebody with balls that big, if you'll pardon my French. So anyway, he got out of it. He actually got on the plane. He flew to his destination. I still have no idea how many angels made that possible. But afterwards, he said, I don't think I'm going to fly again for a while. He said, I have to figure out how I have to start driving, because he has work travels he has to do. And then he corrected himself and he said, I get to start going on road trips. Not that I have to start driving to places, but now I get to. Now I get to take my time and see more of the country instead of flying. And for those of us that have been in the fight for a while, that's the thing that brings us energy and joy, is that we have changed. I don't blow money eating out all the time anymore, because I don't like eating out with a bunch of masked up people. So I get to eat at home. I get to cook my own food and eat healthy food now and cook for the people I love. That's where we turn all this crisis and all this turmoil into opportunity to create a better lives for ourselves and our family. That's really what this is all about. So I just invite you to this brave new world, and stay in touch, and we'll see you soon.